Hey guys, and welcome back to ASTV here. I'm Mahith Gamage, and we're joined by Hector Vergara today from the Manitoba Soccer Association, the executive director, to talk about the return to play model, which kicks off, I believe, on June 17th with stage one. Pretty much just non-contact practices, no games just yet. But it's an exciting time because we finally got a little bit of a model to come back into after a few months of not knowing when, where, what was going to happen because we weren't sure, like, are we going to have to wait till August? Is the summer going to be canceled completely? But now we can see at least there's one step that we have in place for June 17th. Hector, first of all, how are you?
I'm good, and thanks for having us. I appreciate it.
Of course.
Good to see you again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been weird to see you
instead of in person, but it's okay for now. I suppose we need to deal with it that way.
Yeah, I'm used to seeing you in person. I usually see Chris and Adam regardless online with the Zoom classes. So it's a bit weird seeing you on here. But Chris and Adam, whenever I see them online, it's like, this is where these guys belong. I don't need to see them in person.
Well, I'm glad that you're one of those individuals that taking advantage of the time that we haven't had any activity to be able to do some things like coach education and so forth. That's also very good for our programs and very good for the system that our coaches are getting educated while they're not being able to go on the pitch and train players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll get to that in a bit, but we'll start with the stage one. If you could just explain a little bit as to how that plan works and how it's going to sort of look.
Well, I want to explain a little bit that the process that we went through a bit to get to these protocols. These protocols are mandated not only from Canada Soccer, but they're mandated by the provincial health authorities as well. So we work together with other provincial bodies, other sports, get some feedback from some of our members to develop the protocols that will be in place in order to mitigate the risk to our participants, our coaches, our organizations. So the idea behind the protocols is about mitigating risk, is about reducing the possibilities of infection and having a spike happen again, because everybody's talking about a second wave of the pandemic, and we don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen in our sport or anywhere in the community. So that's part of having the protocols in place. And we had the protocols reviewed by our board of directors, by Canada Soccer, approved by both, and then approved by the provincial health authorities to allow us to move into a return to participation. We call it return to participation because people get caught up in the return to play aspect of the document, assuming that return to play means return to competition and games. Mm-hmm. And the reality here is that we were very deliberate in naming it stages 1, 2, and 3 versus phases, because we didn't want to be confused with the phases that the provincial government is put in place. Obviously, in their development of return to somewhat of the new norm is phase 1, phase 2, and we're in their phase 2 right now, which is essentially our stage 1. Mm-hmm. So for our stage 1, there's a whole bunch of in the document itself. There's a bunch of recommendations that we're making to the community, to our sport organizations and leagues and clubs, related to even the inclusion of even waiver forms and information about what they should be covering when they do some sort of how can I say, an opportunity to brief and to educate the parents and players and coaches through an orientation session. We included some things that they should be covering. We've also provided information as to what happens if symptoms come up, how they're supposed to report them, if there is some sort of response action plan that needs to happen. And we expect the clubs can have their own return to participate protocols if they wish, as long as they take in consideration the Manitoba Soccer Association's plan. If they don't have their own plan, they're able to adopt ours, and hopefully that will mitigate the risk for the club. And there's lots of recommendations and precautions in the document. Obviously, I'm not going to go through every single one of those things, but we expect, as you indicated, in the early stages to simply simply start to get the players back on in touch with the ball, and be able to get some physical activity and fitness. They must remain within keeping the distance, the physical distance of 2 meters as recommended by the health authorities, trying to keep the groups small as well. We're removing things like benches, asking the club not to have benches. We're asking the clubs to keep distance even in the bench area, and sometimes even think about having breaks, putting some thought about signage so that it reminds everybody that we're going through this process, and that steps and things that they need to do. Reminding everybody about sanitizing the equipment, maybe bringing your own soccer ball, playing the game with your lower body instead of using your hands and your head. Making sure that there's people not hanging around for no reason at all, and asking parents to maybe stay in their cars and listen to some music and get on their phone for an hour while they wait for the child to finish a session, and trying to minimize the risk overall. And simple things like no handshakes. I mean, players are used to doing that. They do that all the time when they come to the field, and out of respect, they greet their coaches or their fellow teammates, and shake hands and high fives and low fives and all this kind of stuff. And we're asking them to avoid that. And it's all for a good reason. It's not because we don't want them to be social, or because we don't want them to be having the spirit of the game and having the spirit of the team. It's more about keeping them safe. So there's lots of things like this that are being considered in the first stage. And as you mentioned, we start June 17th with stage 1.
Yeah, and I noticed that it was like very, very thorough and very, like you said, very cautious, because I was looking through it yesterday, and a lot of the stuff was things that I wouldn't even think of. Like you mentioned, the keeping it to the lower body, not hitting the ball, not touching the ball. That's if I was thinking of how to put these precautions in place, that's not something I would think of. But now that I see it, it's like, okay, well, this makes a lot of sense, and it's sort of just kind of getting people back into the sport, like you said, just touching the ball, because it's not like if you throw everybody into games right away, nobody's gonna be performing at the highest level, right? After 3 months of just being at home.
No, and we need to be careful here. I mean, this has been reviewed by health experts. It has been reviewed by the medical committee of Canada Soccer. It's been reviewed by the lawyers at Canada Soccer have reviewed the document as well. It's gone through a long process of developing, and to be quite honest, this version that you received is actually version 10 of the document. There's been 10 versions of the document, so it's evolved a number of times in order for us to come up with something that we think will keep our participants as safe as possible and mitigate the risk for the clubs and the leagues involved in the process. So there's been a lot of thought put into it, and for us across the country, not just us, but everybody across the country is essentially starting with a blank page. Because we've never gone through this before, so it's been a lot of thinking, a lot of work, and it's been hopefully for a good cause and for a good reason, and it will help us to stay safe for starting on June 17th. And I have to explain that although the provincial health authorities and the provincial government allow team sports to come back on June 1st, one of the commitments and one of the feedbacks that we got from our membership was, you need to give us some time. When the health authorities in Canada Soccer decide that it's okay to come back to participate, you need to give us some time so that we can get prepared. There's clubs that have kept registrations in this the last. Obviously, normally the registrations happen in February, March. So some clubs have kept registrations. Some have kept deposits. Some have had to done returns because parents have asked for them, and obviously they're complying.
Right.
So now all of a sudden, some clubs have some registered players, some unregistered players, and they have to get. Some people the reality is some people may decide not to come back and play in the summer. That's a real. We have to understand that that's reality. Some parents, depending on their personal situations, some of them have lost jobs. Some of them have been laid off, and are not collecting the same amount of money they were collecting before, and it might be a tight budget for the family. So maybe they're not coming back to play, not because they don't want to. Uh, Maybe it's got to do all with with a financial situation. So at the end, the clubs need to find out how many players do we actually have, and do we have to reset the teams that they originally may have thought they had already in February and March. So there's a whole bunch of different variables that the clubs, the leagues need to figure out. And knowing when we are restarting, essentially, it gives them a little bit of time for them to get all these things organized. Even the simple thing as cutting the grass on the fields that they have permits for, or getting in contact with whoever's in charge of the field to get it ready for them to actually come back and play. I mean, you look at certain venues, and the goalposts are all put aside. They're not even on the soccer pitch right now. They're in storage. So there's a lot of things that need to happen, and as we have to understand that a lot of our member organizations, are operated by volunteers. And although some have staff, they don't have a lot of staff. They have volunteers who are also, in some cases, are working, and in some cases need some time to be able to do all this. So there's a lot of variables that people have to take in consideration. And we've got the emails. I can tell you, we've got the emails from parents and organizations, and questions about why are we waiting? Why are we waiting until June 17th? Well, there's a lot of good reasons why we're waiting, and people are comparing the return to participation in Manitoba to the return to play in Europe, in some of the organizations like professional environments.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about two different worlds. The professional environments are playing in stadiums that are empty. They're playing in stadiums where they have medical experts available at the stadium, where every single person that enters that facility the temperature is being taken, they're being measured, they're being asked a whole bunch of questions. There's all kinds of protocols themselves that they have to follow. So it's not as easy as to say, let's just get back to play.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of, and we have to understand that the health authorities have already said there's a potential for a second wave.
Mm-hmm.
We need to keep this pandemic in control. We need to keep the curve in Manitoba flat. And we've been really good in this province. And so kudos to all our community individuals and the people in our community, the parents and kids and everybody who has been listening to the health authorities and doing the right things. And as such, we only currently today have, if I understand correctly, only nine cases, and no one in hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the people have recovered. And lately, the infections that we've had in our province have been related to travel. So if you stay in Manitoba and just play in Manitoba, you won't get infected. It's kind of the message here. But we don't know what's going to happen once we get back to playing. 40% of the people that are infected in this country have been from individuals who didn't even know that they had coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to be very careful, because when our kids get back to playing and the coaches get back on the pitch, if we see an increase in infections, the provincial government has already told the sports, if there's huge increases and it can be tracked back to sports, there is a possibility that, irrespective of which sport the issue is in, all sports could get shut down again.
Mm-hmm.
So it is very, very important, critical that we take the right steps, that we move at a cautious pace. We all know that the players, the coaches, the parents, they all miss their friends. They all want to get back to playing. They've been sitting at home doing schoolwork for 3 months almost.
Yeah.
Not playing with their friends, not seeing their friends live. And that's not good for the mental health of individuals. We understand that. So we need to make sure that that's also taken into consideration, that the kids need to see their friends. They play sports mainly because they want to have fun, and they want to have fun playing with their friends.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure that we create an environment that is safe for them to do that. And hopefully we can create that environment, keep that environment. And as you well know, this is going to be the new norm in our country going forward. What the norm that was 3-4 months ago is not the same norm that we're going to see going forward. There's a lot of things that will probably remain that we will continue to do, and you can see you can probably will see people keeping physical distance as much as possible from other individuals, not because lack of respect or anything like this. It's simply because it's a smart thing to do, is to be safe, and we may have a positive impact even on the common cold, where we may have less situations of that because of the kinds of procedures that we're following and process that we're doing. So at the end, we ask for patience from the members, and to make sure that you follow the protocols, make sure you follow the guidance of the health authorities, and we hope that when we start on June 17th, that we don't have to come back to stage 1 or to stop soccer again this season or into the future. Hopefully we manage this to the point where we start on the 17th and we keep on going. We don't know how long it will be for stage 1. We think maybe 2 weeks, but that is just an estimate. We have not announced an actual date for stage 2 or stage 3.
Yeah.
Because everything will be based on how is it that we move forward. Is it positive? Do we have any cases that we have to deal with? Or is it all is the curve staying flat? So it's a lot of considerations.
Yeah. In an ideal world, stage 1, you're saying, would last 2 weeks. Is that what you're saying? So if everything goes perfectly and, obviously there's no second spike, 2 weeks would be like the minimum that stage 1 would last.
No, I don't want to say that this is stage 1 is going to last 2 weeks minimum. I just want to know. I want people to understand that we know we want to get to stage 3 when we can play full games in competition, and the leagues can organize competitions and games and so forth. However, we don't know how it's going to evolve. So, as you well know, this pandemic has changed. It's changing daily. In some cases, it's changed hourly in some parts of the world. So we're going to keep an eye on this. Obviously, we will listen to the health authorities. If the health authorities makes different announcements that can support us getting to stage 2 quicker than potentially 2 weeks, we will definitely consider that. And it is based on how things evolve. There is no commitment on our part that it will be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. It's we hope that it's as quick as possible. And again, we're giving time to evaluate this as well through the clubs themselves. They will have an idea as to whether any of their players or coaches are getting ill, and they will have to do some tracking of that illness as to obviously once they become ill, stay away from the field, stay away from contact, but isolate, but also track it. How many other people have come in contact with that individual, and let's see whether or not it's just a common flu, a common cold, or is it the pandemic that we're dealing with. So we'll have to evaluate day by day.
Just going back to the documents that you guys did release this week, I noticed that you also included some session plans for I believe it's U13 and then 13 and above. Could you just explain a little bit about that and how that idea kind of came up?
So obviously in stage 1, we've developed some drills as examples of what the clubs can use. We suspect that some of the clubs may have developed their own, which is fantastic. This is just another resource that we provide to them. They can use it, and if they have their own, go ahead and use your own. The idea here is that normally in soccer, you don't have specific drills, sessions done, keeping in mind a distance of 2 meters and in a group small, right? You don't think about, as you said earlier, you don't think about those things. You only start thinking about those things when the health authorities tell you that's how you have to operate.
Yeah.
So we thought, it's good for us to provide some examples of how this can be adjusted, how the sessions can be adjusted to accommodate the requirements, thinking that, in some cases, some of the clubs may have never ever thought about doing a session where I gotta keep the players 2 meters apart from each other,
Mhm.
and I have to worry about sanitizing equipment, and maybe the players can only bring their own soccer ball, and not using pennies and all this kind of stuff. So all of these sessions ideas came from discussions that we had with other provincial associations as well, where everybody is looking at providing some sort of resource to their own membership to be able to get them to participate and keep it safe. And obviously, those sessions are mainly for stage one. We hope that in stage two, already there is a little bit of competition, small-sided, where we're still asking people to keep to the guidelines and to the recommendations, but also consider that now you can have contact. And we're looking for the provincial health authorities to increase the amount of contact between individuals from the 10 minutes that are now recommended, and that's 10 minutes total. So if in a session, if you and I come in contact with each other 20 times during the session, and those contacts are 30 seconds, that's 10 minutes. You think about a game, a defender or attacker situation where they're playing against each other the entire game for 90 minutes. There'll be a number of situations where there'll be less than 2 meters close to each other, and therefore those minutes count. So at the end of the day, what we're looking for is to get some support from the health authorities that increases those 10 minutes of total contact or proximity to another individual from potentially 10 to 15 or 20 minutes. That will allow us to open up and be able to get into full 11v11, full size field, 90-minute games, back to the new norm type of thing, where we can have people have more contact for longer periods of time and still be safe.
And just talking back to the coaching stuff, that guys kind of split it up into online, and then the on-field portion is going to be completed later. For the on-field portion, is that going to be in stage 2 or stage 3, or is there a plan for that yet?
We're thinking that either stage 2 or stage 3, depending on exactly how the sessions need to be and exactly how the health authorities have told us the distance of people that need to maintain and what the size of the groups could be. So we're evaluating that regularly and considering that. And it's not just the coaching courses. I mean, this hit us at a time when we have all of our coaching courses and all of our referee courses in getting them ready for the summer season. In other words, there's a lot of individuals that would take those courses as they prepare for the outdoor season. So we moved, as you know, in the coaching side, we moved on to online courses. We did the same thing with refereeing. So all those individuals, and there's 100 plus individuals who have taken referee courses over the last couple of months here with the online material. And now those individuals will have to do the practical side. So for us as well, MSA, we need to get those things in place in order for us to complete that before we actually have any competition, so that these individuals are trained, ready to go, and be able to participate in the league competition. So that's also something that's being taken into consideration for the next couple of weeks, looking towards potentially and hopefully being able to play full-size competition in league games and into July.
And just in games in general, like how different do you think it's going to look as opposed to before, when we're in stage 3, when we're back to playing regularly? Is it going to look completely different than what it was before?
No, I don't think the game itself is going to look different. I mean, once you get the ball rolling on the pitch, as you well know, you forget everything else, right?
Yeah.
So this is why it's important for us to make sure that when we get to that stage, it is safe, that it's okay for the players to have contact, that it's okay for the players to have challenges of one-on-one. It's okay for the goalkeeper to touch the ball with the hands, because we want the game to be as normal as possible.
Yeah.
Now, where some of the changes could be is in the technical area. You may not want to sit beside right on top of your teammates. Sometimes you see those benches there, everybody's crowded in there, right? And maybe you need to sit 1 meter, 2 meters apart from each other just to be safer. The fact that maybe we won't have handshakes, right? Maybe when we deal with referee deals with ID cards, maybe there won't be an exchange of an ID card. Maybe it's just look at the ID card, you keep it. If I need it, you have to be respectful at the end of the game. I'll take it from you then. Those kinds of things are the things that I think are going to be more the things off the pitch that may have amendments to how we do things versus the things that are happening on the pitch. I think the players and the referees will behave as they normally would. It's difficult for us to change the game, and this is one of the reasons why we couldn't go right to games right off the bat, because we need to test whether or not we're doing the right things. And people, in some other sports, they have amended and changed how the game is played a bit. In soccer, it's very difficult for us to change how the game is played. It's one soccer ball, 11v11. You play normal game, and there's contact and there's challenges. How do you tell people not to be within a? How do you tell?
Yeah.
There's a very interesting article that came out once saying, how do you tell the defending wall that they have to stand 2 meters apart from each other? It's no longer a defending wall. So it's those kind of things. We can't ask to change a sport. We can only ask to change things that maybe happen outside the pitch that are more procedural than they are the actual game. So I think those things will maintain as much as possible. Sanitation of equipment and things like that could still continue to happen. Making sure that you also have the wipes for your hands and that kind of stuff. It's the bathroom being cleaned very often and washing your hands with soap and all that kind of stuff. All of those things could happen. The game itself, though, I think will remain the same.
Well, that's good news. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Hector?
Play a different game than what you used to.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd want to add?
Again, just remind everybody that we all know we want to get back on the pitch and play. We all know that. And we fully understand that need and the desire to do that. We just ask for some patience and understanding that the only reason we're doing it the way we're doing it is because we care about the safety of the participants and the well-being of them and the coaches, the administrators, and mitigating the risk for everybody. And hopefully, I'm looking forward to seeing everybody come back to play. I'm expecting and hoping that the game will be more exciting because you've missed it for so long that you're going to really truly enjoy it, and that there's going to be a lot of sportsmanship between the athletes that participate in our sport, that they'll still compete hard and play hard, but that there will be a lot more respect than there was in the past, and understanding that we're all in this together. It is our sport, and therefore we all play an important part in making sure that it's safe for the people that play it, and that it's enjoyable for everybody, and hopefully work together so that we don't have to retrieve to a stage one or retrieve to not doing anything for the next 3 months again, because we've all missed it. So it's good to get back at it.
Well said. Well, thanks for joining the show again, Hector. It's nice
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I appreciate your support.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that was the ASTV Soccer Show with Hector Vergara from Manitoba Soccer Association. June 17th, stage one of their return to action model starts. Thanks for tuning in, guys.
Take care. Thanks.